welcome back to Salmon's Pizzeria for yet another episode of the Championship Penitentiary. A week that sees a full return, having missed a week due to the League Cup second round. We're back for some interesting results, shall we say. I am, of course, joined by a faceless Aiden this time around. How are you, Aiden?
Yeah, I'm all good. The one time I make an appearance and you don't get to see me, so no face no case with these comments today.
I'm sure there's some people out there who would complain or not complain. But
What are the mods with you and Ashton?
that's just how it is. What's more important is the fact that we can hear you because it's a podcast. So
Yeah. As long as you can hear what I'm saying.
that's all that matters. So we'll just quickly go off of this one because we're going to start off with Friday night under the lights, where it was Inverness at home to Partick Thistle. Partick Thistle looking to continue their perfect start to the league season, having been defeated by Hibs last time around, while Inverness were looking to build on their performance away against Hearts in the League Cup, looking to at least score a goal in the league for the first time. Seb George would give Partick Thistle a lead after his effort from inside the box would deflect past the Cali goalkeeper and defender on the line after just 17 minutes. And it would definitely continue in that manner, Thistle having the majority of the chances in the first half, Monroe being forced into a couple of saves here and there, one denying, I'm not sure who it was, but it was going into the bottom corner. Second half, however, was just a complete switch around. It was pretty much all Cali Thistle, and probably the best chance they had in that second half, Ryan Duncan being played one-on-one, but the Thistle goalkeeper McFarlane would manage to get there just in time, but Cali would finally get their first goal of the league season through Alfie Babbage heading home across in the 87th minute, whose header would find the bottom corner, a goal that would see both sides take a point from the game. It's another draw for Inverness, but they do, as mentioned, get their first goal of the league season, which after a pretty good performance for the first 80 minutes against Hearts before just complete collapse. So if they can build on that, and of course they were playing against top of the league and a team that's many people's favourite, so definitely looking to build on this momentum. Partick Thistle, meanwhile, they're probably hoping that this is just a slight wobble. Like I say, they were pretty dominant in that first half. If they had got a second, it's more than likely they would have gone on to win that game. But yeah, this is just the second half was really not up to what their standards are this season. So yeah, but considering it is Inverness away, a point is definitely better than nothing. Aiden, do you have anything to say on this game on both teams?
It's quite a scrappy game, I think. Both teams, I think Inverness, as you say, wanted to get that first goal, kept clean sheets in their first two. If they're undefeated coming into the championships, there's always positives for me to take from that side. Thistle will be annoyed that they've not got the 3 points, I think, conceding so late on in the game. But as you say, their levels dropped massively in the second half to what we're used to seeing. And remember, they played us opening game, and it was in the first half against us. It was similar to how they were in the second half against Inverness. There was no energy about them. I think they need to try and get that full, complete 90 minutes. But as you say, they're everybody's league favourites. So can Partick Thistle handle the pressure of everybody expecting them to win the league? Usually, it's everybody expecting them to get through the playoffs.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing that's been noted with Thistle, just not getting that full 90 minutes together, because like you say about aside from Morton, it was like Livingston, the Livingston home game they were really good in, but then Hibs away they were nowhere. They had nothing for like the first hour until they got denied a penalty, and then after that it was pretty much all them, but they just weren't able to convert their chances. A bit of clinicalness could have seen them at least take that game into extra time potentially, and then with this one, as you say, like that first half, they probably, if they were a bit more clinical, that's probably another 3 points. But yeah, Inverness, they'll look at the positives for this one, definitely grow from the first two games. Still unbeaten, still winless, but the best of the winless teams so far, and yeah, they'll be looking to try and get a win next time around. So we'll move on to the Saturday fixtures then, as we start off with Morton at home to Arbroath. And Morton, despite playing were definitely in the news. The few their whole Estrella deal and business consortium, all that sort of stuff. Massive fundraising campaign. I'm sure last I'd seen it was about 30,000, and like all the player sponsorships were being done with the. I cannot believe the success. The Beijing Morton Supporters Club sponsoring a month. What a time!
Sponsored a boy from Australia as well.
It's just mad, and you've got some of the signs they made in recent days. But both, meanwhile, they're looking to try and properly kickstart their season. They're looking to get their first win of the season following an opening day loss to Ayr and a draw at home to Inverness, which they were lucky to get away with a point with. Aiden, you were at this game, so I'm going to let you talk about this one.
I think a lot of people might look at the stats. Also, it's not a game that a lot of people will watch. I think when you look at the stats, you'll see Arborough dominated the game with 60% possession and whatnot, but definitely doesn't tell that story at all. First half, I thought Morton played some really good stuff. One of the best we've probably played this season so far. You said everybody knows what's going on at the club at the minute. It's very public for everybody to see, but we played really well. We looked like we had something about us, over the week that we've had as well. Fundraising campaign, all the fans getting involved behind us. I think something the manager put into the players was to use that as the motivation to go and put on a good performance. You get young boys playing at a position as well and they stand up to it. So no, we looked really confident in the first half. We obviously get caught with that goal by Jude Bonner, edge of the box, straight bottom corner, a good strike, but we need to defend that better. We've got a lot of bodies in the box and nobody's getting in the way of it. So it was disappointing to concede that at the time we did. Middle of the first half, it's kind of an awkward time to concede, especially when you've had a good 15, 20 minutes or so. After that, it was kind of a wee bit scrappy. I both like to play a bit with the ball. They look like a really good side this season on the ball. They're not as physical, as direct as people maybe expected them to be. Good on the ball, but we just kind of sat in, frustrated them and tried to catch them in the counter-attack, which eventually in the second half did pay off. We've managed to break. Young Dino's got up the right-hand side. He's just, what a hit for his first goal. 16 years old, playing right back. He's an attacking midfielder, and what a way to score your first professional football goal. I mean, we've all seen it.
Am I right in saying he's naturally an attacking midfielder, but he was filling in right back for this game?
Yeah, same with Louis Murphy at left back as well, another midfielder playing at left back. It's two young boys just want to play football, so wherever they're asked to play, they're happy to get in there and do a job. And again, on his first two games for us, he gave away a penalty in each of the games, St Johnstone and Inverness. Then next game he got man of the match against Partick Thistle, and then he scored at the weekend there. So he's grown. He's a real talent. But no, I was delighted for him. And then also at the end of the game, Eli's pulled off a cracking save. 10 seconds before they've scored in the last minute. We thought maybe this is going to be the chance to get that point, build on that the next week against Ayr United, who obviously lost. But it was gutting to lose it. We shouldn't be conceding in that manner either. Something that Morton are obviously known for in the past is defending their box, being hard to score against at set pieces, tall, physical side, but it's just nothing's fallen for us at the minute.
I did see, watching the highlights, seeing that goal go in 93rd minute as well. So, as you say, that really close to getting that first point, and yeah, just a really unlucky goal to concede. But again, just very scrappy, and normally that's what Morton are known as being good at. So to concede in that manner is absolutely gutting for them. But yeah, there is definitely promising signs there, as you say. So yeah, definitely unlucky to get the first point. And the promising sign is the fact that you have finally scored a goal this season. It's only taken so that's 7 competitive games plus a friendly.
Yeah, Western Raw and opening day, for pre-season.
I was thinking to myself, that's the first goal that you have scored since against Airdrie.
Yeah, but we've not got a lot in the attacking side of things. We've got Eamon Brofish, he's not a lone striker, but he's also having to play that role at the minute because Jaden's out injured, so we've not got anything really up there. We've also just brought in Sahil from Huddersfield, so he'll give us that wee bit more. A young hungry player. Got Chris Cupps has come in, he'll play at the back, and he's highly thought of at Chicago Fire, so it's two good signings that were
Yeah,
brought in to kind of
I
help
want to
us.
see that Cups boy from Chicago Fire. He made his MLS debut at like 16, and he is a US youth international. So for him to rock up at Greenock Morton is definitely an interesting career path. But as you say, he's highly thought of. So it'll be interesting to see how he develops. He's definitely with the way things have been so far, you can only imagine he's going to get himself a lot of experience, to put it lightly.
Yeah, no, it's good to get those two boys in as well. Because also we've got a lot of injuries, and we touched on the two young boys having to play out of position. So it'll be good for us to kind of shuffle the pack a wee bit. We've got a couple more boys coming back: Cammy Ballantyne and Jackson Longridge due back for next week as well. So that really helps us get a proper experienced backline as well with those two coming in. And then it's just a case of we can get Jaden Gorman back up top alongside Eamon Brophy, then the goals should hopefully start coming. But I don't think it's no panic stations from any of us. Like a lot of people on social media seem to think.
Yeah, it does. It definitely does just feel like this really like shambolic start, but one that is fixable. Like you look at the squad now, and when they do have their players back, it is still at its core a championship team. It's just the depth is an issue right now.
Yeah, yeah,
And
we're lacking in a lot of key areas. We're very midfield heavy, but it was kind of part of the plans. We bring in certain players and try and build around it. But obviously, we weren't able to add those key players around what we had. Bringing in Harry, Cal, Sandylands and stuff. We want to add that quality around about them so they could flourish. But we've not the chance to bring that in.
yeah, as you say, it's like once you get another striker, so that it isn't just Eamon Brophy, then we will see how Morton develop. Just again, it's
But I tell
just
you what, though, our both do look really good. For all what we'll talk about Morton, our both did play well. And they probably did deserve the win. They fought more than we did in the attacking side of things. We defended well, but I think they offered more to the game. And those two have got them playing brilliantly. You've seen it last season as well. They both are a good side, and they look a lot better this season again. Very well organised, and they got that first away win, and God knows how long as well.
yeah. I think it's their first away win since January. I want to say,
Yeah,
and as you say, it was a very good performance from them. As you say, probably deserving overall, but it's just a shame how it's come about from a Morton perspective. But yeah, definitely a much improved performance from the last two games. Trying to think their air loss aside from, and they had one. Trying to think, they had a couple of really good chances against air, but just weren't able to convert them. One of them just being through a really good save from Harry Stone, whereas with the Inverness game, they were just not really in it.
yeah.
As I alluded to, they were lucky to come away with a draw in that instance. So yeah, getting that win, maybe this is a proper kickstart because they weren't great in the League Cup either. I want to
No,
say
I
they
think
finished
third
third in
finisher.
that group,
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
definitely lost to lower league sides. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they can kick on from here, and that applies to both teams. So, alright, we'll move on now to Queen's Park against Stenhousemuir. Queen's Park, who have also had a bit of an iffy start to their league campaign, 2 losses from 2. Stenhousemuir, meanwhile, proving to be the surprise package of the season with their 4 points from their opening 2 games and having defeated Motherwell in the League Cup last weekend. And after a pretty dominant first half, Stenny would get a deserved lead just 4 minutes into the start of the second, as Cup hero Ewan O'Reilly would be played through 1-on-1 and just a really nice simple dink over the goalkeeper. Just the way it just bobbles over the line is really nice. Like perfect. This like a perfect chip over the line. And then aside and getting ahead of myself there. Stenny would get a deserved second just 5 minutes before full time, as Gregor Buchanan would fire home a volley from a corner at the back post whilst completely unmarked. Aside from an Aiden Connolly free kick before the end, which hit the crossbar, which I believe Queens did. Yeah, there was a claim for a penalty for it, but watching the highlights, it did seem like it was a case of contact was initiated like just outside the box. So quite unlucky there, but ultimately the right decision. But yeah, aside from that free kick, there was nothing there from Queen's Park. So, and yeah, they go down 2-0. So again, another very impressive performance this from Stenhousemuir. They're now top of the league on goal difference, which after 3 games is quite incredible. And yeah, they don't. Many people, including myself and the others on this podcast, were saying how Stenny probably gonna struggle this season. Look set to finish bottom, possibly ninth at best. They're not looking like that kind of team to start the season. They're looking really, really good so far. Look very well organised and just able to take their chances, all that sort of stuff. Queen's Park, however, they look terrible. They, again, like nothing going forward, which can be. When it happened against Livingston, you're like, okay, that's fine. It's Livingston. They're probably going to be challenging the title, all that sort of stuff. They weren't great against Raith aside from like the final 15 minutes once they got their goal back, but that was after Raith had just sort of sat back and were just sort of taking the win. But now it's really troubling now, considering, especially with Partick Thistle up next away as their game. And yeah, Queen's Park, because they've conceded a goal more than Morton, they're bottom. And yeah, Enzo's believing they could be in trouble, considering the start of this season so far. Aiden, do you have anything to add on either team?
Very confused by the start Queen's Park have had, because when you look at the starting 11 from the weekend, nothing's really changed from
Mm.
last lineup wise. Different goalkeeper, back four's the same. Bring in Aiden McCallie, everything other than that, it's pretty much the same lineup as last season. It's the same defence. And you mentioned the goals. The first goal, the boys ran through the middle of 2 centre halves, and he's ended up 1-on-1 with the goalkeeper. And you leave one of the biggest centre halves in the league unmarked at the back post to shoot with his feet and not even his head. They shouldn't be allowed to shoot that close to the goal when you're that height. It's just really poor for Queen's Park. As I say, I don't understand how they're so poor at the minute, but we've seen it last season. They had a really bad spell in the league, and then out of nowhere they just kind of picked it up and started climbing up the table at the right time. But in terms of Stenhousemuir, they're really clinical in front of goal. I was looking at it earlier on when they played against Raith Rovers. They had 2 shots on target, scored one. Played against us, 4 on target, scored two. Weekend, 4 on target, scored two.
Can I just put a caveat on the Raith Rovers game? It's the fact that it's like they missed. What was it? Dale Carrick missed a borderline open goal free header like 5 minutes after his teammate had scored after clearance was just bounced off his face, which is incredible work from them. But it's
Yeah,
like you gotta get your goals from somewhere. So if they're even a bit more clinical, they'd have 9 from 9, which is just
yeah,
phenomenal. But yeah,
crazy. But to put
clinicalness
half
is
of the shots on
right.
target in the back of the net is crazy. A lot of people wrote them off because Gary obviously left to go to Ayr. Everybody thought, it's that the players will follow him. Obviously, they lost Ross Taylor, key player from last season. He went to Ayr United with them, but they've just continued that brilliant run they were on. And I'll tell you, I like Darren Jamieson in goal. For a guy of his age, he's been down there for a couple of years now. He's always kind of been part time, but he's one of the better goalkeepers in the league at the minute, and he's playing in a really well organised team. Marvin Bartley's got them playing really well.
Yeah, it's like when Gary Naismith was announced as leaving for A United. It was definitely a case of it could go the way of like I compared it to when you take over a lower league team in Football Manager, and it's like you take yourself up a few divisions, but then it's like once you leave, that club just sort of plummets
Yeah,
back down to where they were before, and so it was like there was that sort of fear, and especially when Marvin Bartley came in because he's not got a great track record before this job, and needless to say, he's proving everyone wrong. I did. Obviously, it's like I've heard things about him being actually like a pretty decent coach, but
yeah.
it just hasn't translated into management yet. Although it's like that Livingston spell with what was the poorest team in the league by a country mile last time around.
Uh-huh.
It's like they were competitive at least. Like they got a lot more draws versus losses than under Davy Martindale, and they did get a second win. So like there was that. But yeah, it was a case of with Stenhousemuir, you're looking at a team that's got the smallest budget. Their part time is barely going to do much. Well, he's certainly doing all right so far to start the season.
I think the next 3 games are pretty telling as well. They're up against Inverness next. Team we spoke about them. They don't concede any goals really. They're pretty well organised at the back, but they also don't score many, so they won't have much of a goal threat. But then they're away to Livingston, then they've got that big game against Hearts. So 3 really big games for Stenhousemuir. If they can come through those 3, pretty much minus the Hearts game, if they can come through the other 2, then they'll be laughing going into the next half of the season.
Yeah, it's like after the Hearts game anyway, they've got Partick Thistle at home, and so yeah, it's like those next 4 are pretty big for them, and then
Oh.
after that it's both at home, their fellow part-time rivals, shall we say? So yeah, definitely an interesting month coming up for them, which will definitely be a case of. Again, we're only 3 games in, so we'll see what the standings are properly like after everyone's played each other. But so far, very promising for
In
Stenhousemuir.
the cup as well. They went to Firhill earlier on in the season in the cup, 2-2 draw, got a win in penalty kicks as well. So no fear playing against them. They drew 0-0 with Livingston, beat them in penalties. So they've plenty of confidence coming up against these 2 big teams.
Yeah, it's definitely a promising start. As you say about Queen's Park, it is weird that they started so poorly, considering, as you say, there's like 3 changes to that starting lineup from what was their most common starting lineup towards the end of last season. And
They're not
like you
creating
say,
anything
they
either.
started really poorly last season. It's like they were definitely in that scrap with Ross County, Airdrie, and I think Morton were in there for a bit as well. But then it's like after February, they were a solid mid-table team at least. I think they might have been, in terms of points gained, they might have been 4th for much of it, especially after February, which was when everyone expected them to collapse because they did lose Josh Fowler. So to have what has been the start they've had so far, it's like they were pretty unlucky to not get through in the League Cup. It was only Dunfermline winning on the final day that knocked them out on goal difference. So, yeah, it's just very, very bizarre how it's gone for them so far. But, yeah, that's all I really have to say about both teams. Anything else to add?
No, you've kind of covered it all. Really, it's just Queens Park just need to get that first win, and I do think they'll kick on again. They came to us in the third last game of the season last year and drew 0-0, and that kept them in the league. They were sitting 6th, I think it was at the time. So it goes to show in the Championship's the same all the time. 2 wins and you're up at the other end of the league. 2 defeats and you're at the total opposite end as well.
I was going to say, it's like their upcoming games are Partick Thistle, as mentioned, which way things are going, it's Enzo's not really looking forward to that. But then they do have Morton, and again, it's like with the way things are going, that's probably the one that they're going to be looking at. It's like, right, we really need to get something here because if they don't get something about Morton as it stands, they're in for a season of pain. We'll put it that way. Moving on to Raith Rovers against Ayr United then. Raith looking to continue on their solid start following a week off, whilst Ayr look to build on their performance in a narrow defeat to local rivals Kilmarnock in what I thought was a really good game, that one. Ayr definitely very competitive in that, unlucky points to possibly... There was definitely a possibility of them winning that game. Like they were absolutely in it, just tired out towards the end. Kilmarnock showing their Premiership quality, but the start for Ayr was absolutely disastrous. As 5 minutes into the game, Leon King would get sent off after being caught out of possession by Paul McMullen, who he just rugby tackles to the ground whilst he is the last man. Ayr United decided this was worth appealing. It was dismissed. Aiden, do you think this was the right decision, or were Ayr right to be annoyed?
I can understand why they appealed it. I think McMullen does put a little bit of weight onto him, and that causes him to fall. However, I don't think it's enough. I think it's accidental. It is a red card, but I can understand why you chance your luck. But when that gets given, it's not getting overturned.
It was. There was some claims about like McMullen actually fouling King, but like No, it just does not look like that. It's just like Liam King's just there in the middle, just sort of dilly dallying on the ball, and it's like he goes to turn, and that's when McMullen just sort of nips in, and like I say, it's just like King just like bundles over and just brings McMullen down with him.
Yeah, if you bring
So
it back to the start, why is your centre half running backwards, letting the ball come towards him? Just either knock it to Kevin Holt or get it up the pitch.
I just not just a disastrous start for them, and this would continue as 3 minutes later. Raith would take advantage as after Kai Montague's cross was blocked, Zach Delaney would poke it towards Anton Dowds, who was basically unmarked in the middle of the box, and his first time effort would just bounce off the crossbar and into the net to give Raith the lead. Not long after, a second goal would come as Paul McMullen would, with a lovely chip from the edge of the box, would find Anton Dowds again towards the back post, making the run, whose volley would find the bottom corner to make it 2-0. For the rest of the game, aside from two long-range efforts, one of which being blocked on the edge of the box, there was nothing from her. It was all Raith, including probably like the best chance in the second half. Well, probably the closest we came was Montague. He had a long-range effort tipped over. So, yeah, end of the day, just really comfortable 3 points for the Rovers, which great to see. I'm more than happy with that. Yeah, another really good performance. Yeah, the red card, of course, that helped, but considering how sometimes if a team is down to 10 men, it can actually be a bit more difficult to score because they'll just pack bodies into the box. Somehow this wasn't the case, considering how open Anton Dowds was for both of the goals. So, yeah, if you want a prime example of how to play against a team that's down a man, there you go. Just got to hope that they play like Ayr did, of course.
Right.
So, yeah, as I did allude to earlier with Stenhousemuir getting that really lucky goal against us, without that, we're top of the league after 3 games. So,
Yeah.
a very promising start, although I think it was noted last season that after 3 games, we were also on 7 points. And we know how that went. A United, meanwhile, as mentioned, they're going to have to deal with Leon King being missing for their next game, and it was really funny how they announced the appeal had been rejected because they've got one of their advertising boards around Somerset Park sponsored by the local Specsavers, and so they had that. They had that in black and white for announcing the appeal. I got to respect the pettiness, but considering how much, especially in the past week, that pettiness has come back to bite them on the arse, especially with them and their comments about Kilmarnock before getting beat. Maybe tone it down a little. But yeah, aside from that, it's like the defending for their two goals was just diabolical. Like you're letting Anton Dowds just. The first one is bad because like Anton Dowds is our lone striker and he's just completely unmarked in the box. And then the second, he's a good 2 or 3 yards in space, and like he's not the quickest, but he's just able to get there as the ball is put over. I wouldn't put it down to defending. I'd probably actually put it just down to just a really good ball from Paul McMullen, which is weird to say after the amount of slander I had against him for last season, and like so far this season he's actually been really good. So as I put on Twitter, the apology forms are very much out there, but yeah, there's just really not much to say for outside of that, just because well they were down a man for over 85 minutes, so I'm not entirely sure what they could have expected. Aiden, do you have anything to add about both teams?
Yeah, I mean, Errol, as we said, Errol went down to 10 men after 5 minutes, but they kept 2 men up top, which is quite surprising when you look at the lack of chances they created. You know, you keep if you're keeping 2 on, then you're also sacrificing somebody in the middle or at the back. So I don't know what the thinking was behind that. A few hopeless kind of crosses into the box. Goalkeeper came and caught them, but Josh Race had no saves to make in the game. He's come out and caught a few cross balls, and other than that, that was quality I really had from them. He used Reece Lyon quite a lot as our go-to man in the middle of the pitch, try and spread the play. But every time he get the ball, he was getting shut down pretty quickly. So that's a Dougie Emery side, and it's hard working. He's if he gets that early goal, he always likes to try and chase another, and then just kind of see it out. That's what you're going to get from a Dougie Emery team, and if we can get those early goals, and Raith Rovers will continue to pick up points. We get no doubts about that because it's just the way he is. He knows how to see games out. He's got a number of different ways he can play as well as a manager. You've seen it at Morton. 1 minute we can go long, next minute you're keeping the ball, you're passing it about, you're scoring goals for fun. You can go on a good run. So yeah, credit to Raith Rovers. It's difficult playing against 10 men. You hear a lot of managers saying it's more harder than playing against 11. So to go and get 2 goals at quick succession as well. And again, Anton Dowd is a natural striker, and it's somebody that you're surprised Ayr didn't know how to handle, considering he spent a lot of time at them. So, no, he's a natural striker. You get the ball into him in the 6 yard box, and 9 times out of 10, he's going to put it in the back of the net.
Yeah, it's definitely good to have. I think he's on 3 now, 3 from his last 2. So, of course, one of them was a penalty against Queen's Park, but still, it's good to have a functioning striker up front. And of course, we are still missing Vaughan and Oakley. I think they're both set to come back at some point in the coming weeks. Vaughan maybe before Oakley, but yeah, we definitely got a depth of options now. Of course, before Queen's Park, we signed Callum Adamson on loan from Rangers, and he's looked really good in the midfield. And of course, before this game, I think it might have been on the Friday before, but it was announced that Raith have signed Scott Tiffany. Yeah, beauty. Gotta love the throwback in the announcement. So yeah, we look like we've got a very strong squad. So if things continue, as I did say in the preseason, we looked like we had a very championship squad, and we'll probably finish 5th. The way things are going, possibly bump that up to 4th. Who knows if Dunfermline continues to struggle? Maybe 3rd. I'm not. I know I jokingly put on Twitter just saying I'm not one to get my head of myself, but we're winning it all. I don't think we're. I mean, we're still to play them, so who knows? We'll see how it goes. But yeah, I don't think we're quite in that sort of top 2 category yet. But we
I wouldn't be
definitely.
surprised though, because you say it is a championship squad, but sometimes that's all you need. You see a lot of teams building Premiership sides like Ross County, and look how it fails. You can sign all these players that you like, but Scott Tiffany's a good Dougie Emery signing because he'll know how to use them well. Whereas when he goes to teams like Kilmarnock and Livingston, it didn't really work for him. We had him at Morton's when he was coming through the ranks. Then he left us and moved on. I know Dougie tried to bring him back, never worked for whatever reason, but I think he'd be a really good option to have in your team.
Yeah, Scott Tiffany is definitely one of the more exciting signings just because of the fact he's one of those who has proven himself to be a really top level championship winger. But then it's like making that step up, it just hasn't quite worked out for him at Kilmarnock anyway. And with Dundee, he was just a bit he was pretty much just a bit part player there. He was making appearances, but they were mostly off the bench, I believe. So yeah, to add him to the attacking arsenal that we already have, it's looking really exciting. There have been rumours of Jack Baird joining from St Johnstone, probably on loan. So if we add that to centre backs of Hamlin and Fordyce, and of course we got Jay Rowe and Zach Delaney who could also play there as well, it's looking really good. We're
That's a
looking
good
good.
point.
I
That's a
cannot
good
wait to
point.
be let down very much on Friday, but yeah, it's looking really good. I'm liking this.
Yeah, it's a good. He's building a good side. As we said about Scott Tiffany, seen you've got a guy like Anton Dowds in the box. If Scott Tiffany's at it and he just gets at people, get the ball in the box, and as we said, 9 times out of 10 he'll put it in the back of the net. Same with George Oakley, very similar striker to what Dowds is. So once he's back fit as well, you could be off to a flyer.
Yeah, it's definitely. Yeah, I'm really happy with how we started things. Of course, I wish we did get that win against Dunfermline on my birthday, but can't have everything. Can't have everything. But closest things I can have to having everything. We do move on to Livingston against Dunfermline. Livingston are looking to pick themselves up following their defeat to Partick Thistle last time around, whilst Dunfermline were they're in the same boat, having lost to League One Ross County in the League Cup last weekend, thanks to a late winner from former Raith Rovers winger Richard Chin. I just have to mention that. Dunfermline, they would have a decent chance, a bit of a smash in the Livingston box, but just before half time, Bradley Van Hoven with basically a mirrored effort of Paul McMullen's from the first week, where he just manages to dance about on the edge of the box, beat a man, and just curl it into that far top left corner. It was a very nice strike to open the scoring that one. That gives Livingston the lead. Second half, Dunfermline again would start off with a bit of a shamashi kind of chance, but Livingston were pretty much all over them for the second half. Majority of chances, including a penalty claim, which I'm really surprised wasn't given with this one, seeing as a Dunfermline player sort of ran into the box and then pushed over the Livingston player with both arms out. I'm not sure why this one wasn't given. Aiden, do you have anything to add about this penalty claim?
I think it is a penalty kick. I don't think there's any argument in that. I don't think the referee's actually fully focused on what's going on at that exact point. There's a few bodies running around him, across him, so I don't know what he's looking at. But no, it is a penalty kick.
And then after that, about 5 minutes before full time, Robbie Muirhead would have a free kick that would hit the bar. It was either hit the bar or it was tipped onto the bar. And then Tyrese Sinclair, who I was raving about after the Queen's Park game, I was just like, oh, he looks really special. He looks like someone to watch out for. He gets in front of his man, and he heads the ball wide. He has like an open goal, and he's between the 6 yard box and the penalty spot, and he heads it wide, and it's like far wide. Not like, oh, it's like scuffed it a little bit. No, it's just gone wide, like for like the furthest point that could have been. Baffling that he didn't score that, but thankfully for Livingston, a cross from Stevie May would find Robbie Muirhead, who with a side-footed volley just places it right into the bottom corner. Just a pure technique goalless one. That coming in the 90th minute to give Livingston a well-deserved 2-0 victory, which moves them back up into fourth position. Dunfermline, yet another. So that's back-to-back defeats now for them, if we want to include the Ross County game. Still winless, which, considering the expectations, it's troubling from them.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say about these two?
It actually it was a pretty decent game too. I thought Dunfermline weren't too bad. They created a lot of chances, but again, they're just got no killer instinct at the top of the pitch. They don't look like scoring a lot of goals this season. Whereas Livingston, on the other hand, take their chances up. What was it? Van Hooven, absolute some strike from the boy. And then the guy that I always rave about, Robbie Muirhead, with a classic Robbie Muirhead finish at the end of the game, and a classic celebration for Robbie Muirhead as well. 3 goals in 3 games from the big man, so I'm buzzing to see him scoring goals again. He's a really good player for the Scottish Championship. Seen it as he was always around about that 20-goal marker there, between 15 to 20. So get him on the score sheet. Stevie May will get as close to 10 as he can as well, and Livingston will be relying on the both of them. But as you say, for Dunfermline, their expectations would be top 4 probably at a minimum, especially after last season with the Scottish Cup and stuff. Kind of want to build on it. But it's just kind of hit a bit of a stalemate and they've not gone anywhere. Losing to Ross County last week, as you mentioned as well. So something's not right at Dunfermline, and you were probably buzzing about that, to be fair.
I am absolutely buzzing about it, but yeah, as you say, like Robbie Muirhead, he's currently listed as the top scorer in the league with 3 goals and 1 assist. So that assist is putting him ahead of Dowds in the standings. But yeah, like you say, he's a very good championship striker. As you say, it's like at Morton, he was constantly at that 15-20 mark. So yeah, they'll definitely be looking to him for continuing his form. And yeah, it's like with Dunfermline, it's like the fans have been sharing their concerns, especially after that defeat in the Ross County one, about their lack of strike power. I'm not entirely convinced they've only scored the 1 goal in their 3 league games. That came against A United, and then of course they scored once against Ross County in a 2-1 defeat. But yeah, it's like they beat Dumbarton 4-1 and they beat Cove 5-0. They beat St Mirren 1-0, but that was through a penalty. But then of course they did lose at 3-0 to East Kilbride in the League Cup. So it is a bit of a weird one with how they've started their league season, a bit similar to Queen's Park, where it's like, oh, there's some promise there, and it's just not translated at all into the league campaign so far. As we'll get on to, it is the derby on the weekends. So yeah, if there's any game for them to pick themselves up at and win, it's going to be that one, and I'm fully prepared for it. But yeah, Livingston definitely back onto what they were like against Queen's Park. Maybe not quite as dominant as they were against Queen's Park, because that Queen's Park game they probably should have won by about 4 or 5. But yeah, definitely putting their momentum into the right direction. Anything else you want to add before we go into the league tables?
Yeah, no, but I still just think Livingston will win the league at quite a canter.
Oh yeah, it's like you missed the
Yeah,
you missed the predictions. So whilst we are here, do you want to say who you think will get relegated and who? You just said you think Livingston will win the league. Who do you
Livingston will win the league. Livingston will win the league by at least 10 points.
Oh, big shout.
And Robin Muirhead will hit it around 15 goals again. I think for relegation it is a big toss-up. A lot of us probably had Stenhousemuir down there at the start of the season. I'm not going to say Morton. I will, so I'll just have to go out there and say I do think Queen's Park will be dragged into it if they can keep on getting this poor run of results that they're on. I think it will depend the next few weeks, but I'll go for it. I'll say Queen's Park will be bottom. I think if Dunfermline don't change their manager in the next month, I think they'll finish 9th.
I'll be impressed considering that Neil Lennon signed a new contract. Like, what was it after the second game? I think it was in the lead up to the air game that he signed a new contract. So, I mean, Dunfermline will lose to like their 6-figure losses, so I'm sure they can eat that up just fine. But yeah, we'll quickly go through the league table then, where it's currently a 3-way tie at the top, but of course it is Stenhousemuir at the top of the table with a goal difference of 4 and 7 points, and then they're followed by Raith Rovers and Partick Thistle. Raith ahead thanks to scoring 5 versus Thistle's 4. In 4th place we have Livingston with 6 points, and then 5th and 6th you have A United and Arbroath, both teams having 1 win, 1 draw and a loss. It's just that A have got goal difference of 0 thanks to 3 goals scored, Arbroath -1 having scored 1 less. Inverness are the only team on 3 points, but have of course drawn all 3 games, so they're sat in 7th. Dunfermline meanwhile are down in 8th with just 2 points and only 1 goal scored. Morton meanwhile move up to 9th. They're up to 9th with a -4 goal difference, 1 goal and 5 conceded, whilst Queen's Park sit bottom, 1 goal scored, 6 conceded, a -5 goal difference, nil points. So, we'll move on to the weekend's fixtures, which we'll be looking to cover in next week's episode. And we, of course, start off with the big one on a Friday night, Dunfermline Athletic at home to Raith Rovers. As I have been alluding to, this feels like, as I say, it's like Raith have had a very strong start to the season, unbeaten so far. You know, it's like we've only lost on penalties to Kilmarnock and Accies, which is just really annoying. But still, a very good start to the season from us, whilst Dunfermline, after the League Cup group stage, have floundered a bit, a very poor August from them. But this is the Fife Derby, and let's just put it this way, the away team usually doesn't win these ones. I think it was like Raith, after winning, what was it, we won twice? No, 3 times at Easton Park under Ian Murray in that season where he finished 2nd, and outside of that, I think that first league win at Easton Park was the first time we'd won there in about 10 years. And then when Dunfermline got their win just after Christmas at Starks Park, again, that was their first win at Starks Park in about a decade. It's not common for the away team to get a victory, and considering current form, you'd probably say Raith are more likely to get the win, and I feel like it's definitely a case of whoever scores first wins this game. That's just how it's going to go. Because, it's like, as you say, it's like with Dougie Emery, it is a case of get the first goal, push for that second, and then just sort of shop. And considering how poor Dunfermline have been in front of goal in the league recently, maybe even just the one goal could be enough in this one. But with my experience of five derbies, that's never usually the case. It's very rare that there's only one goal in these affairs. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. I do have a ticket for Friday. And what was
I
it?
do think you'll win the
The
game.
referee. I'm not sure if I can see it on Flash Scores, but it was something Nicholson is going to be the referee, and D Nicholson, and I think at one point last season, it was a performance from him again involving a game against Dunfermline that led to Neil Lennon just going off the rails, and it got him like a month ban. So round two, please. I will take the dodgiest 90th minute penalty to win the game. Just
I think it'll be more straightforward than you think.
on the pitch.
It'll be more straightforward than you think. I think Raith Rovers will win that quite comfortably, if I'm being honest. I don't want to jinx it for you, but the gaffer's really good at getting players up for big games, especially derby games. He's really good at that. We only ever played St Mirren in the we only ever played St Mirren in the Renfrewshire Cup, which is basically a glorified pre-season friendly, but he was really good in them. He gets the team fired up. The games against Hearts, Motherwell, he always got them fired up for that. So I think the gaffer's really good at that with his players, and a lot of the boys know him as well from Morton.
Yeah, it's like, to be fair, it was a loss against Dunfermline in the final derby last season that kick-started I want to say escape, but it really kick-started the end of our season running where we almost snuck into the playoffs somehow. But again, it's like, in the one hand, I'm looking forward to this because I absolutely, it's just derby fever. I just really want to get to it. But it's like, because it's at East End Park and I've been there so many times, the fear. A mixture of excitement and fear. That's what goes into me when it comes to games against Dunfermline at East End Park. I don't really have the fear for Starks Park games because typically we win those, but we typically lose at East End Park. So I think you can understand my cautious optimism.
Yeah, I think come the end of the game you'll be very happy. He'll have them very well prepared, and he won't take Dunfermline for granted either. He'll know that they're looking for that win, and you're the perfect game to get it. So he'll let the players know that.
God, I hope you are right. Moving on to Saturday's fixtures, Lynn. We have got Arbroath at home to Livingston. Of course, Livingston, they've won both of their games at home quite comfortably, but then were I wouldn't say they were fairly comfortably beaten away at Partick Thistle, but not the greatest performance there. So maybe we'll see if it is just a home advantage thing that they've got going, especially with their plastic pitch. Any thoughts on that one? I'm guessing you're expecting a Livingston win.
Yeah, I think Livingston will just continue to build on what they've got. They'll be disappointed from their games against Partick Thistle, but Livingston will see the game out, no problem. There's not really much more to say. I've already backed them to win the league by 10 points. Can't back down now.
We've also got your team, Greenock Morton. They are away to Ayr United. Any thoughts on this one?
Another tough game, always is. Us and Ayr always have those weird battles. It feels like a derby game when we play each other, but it's not got the atmosphere of a derby game. They've also got Leon King suspended, so probably put Luke Macbeth in at the back as he done at the weekend against Hughes. So it'll be a tough one when we've not got a lot of height in the box, and they've got 6 foot plus men defending every cross that we put in. It will be a slog, I think. It'll be very physical, it'll be very scrappy, but I don't see why we can't go and get that first point at least on the board.
Yeah, I understand what you mean when you say not quite derby atmosphere, just because like when it comes to this level for the two of you, I think Partick Thistle are closer for you guys, but for Ayr, you are their closest
Yeah,
rivals in the division and have been for a few years. It helped. I mean, considering the fact we've not had St Mirren in this division for you guys for ages, and then the same can be said about Killy, where they've had one season out of the last
yeah.
like fuck those 20 in the championship. Yeah, it does feel like there is a not quite derby, like a sort of this'll do Tesco meal deal value derby sort of thing going on there. Speaking of Tesco meal deal value derbies, there is a Glasgow derby between Partick Thistle and Queen's Park. Enzo in the group chat was saying he will be on next week to cover the eventual 8-0 drubbing. I don't think it's going to be that bad, but considering the starts to this seasons both teams have had, yeah, this could get nasty for Queen's Park, I feel.
This one at Firhill.
Yeah, it's up for a hill.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see how Thistle do recover from the weekend. There's a conceding that late goal. In all honesty, I don't think it'll be as bad as Enzo thinks it will. I think it'll be like a one-goal game. You'd expect Thistle to come out the positive end of it, though.
And then, of course, our final fixture for the Saturday is our two teams that have come up from League One. It is Stenhousemuir at home to Inverness. This will be an intriguing one. Of course, Inverness looking to try and get their first win. Their record last season was 2 draws and 2 wins for Stenhousemuir, with Inverness winning in the Challenge or the Scottish Cup. That's the Scottish Cup. No, Challenge Cup quarterfinals against them. So, yeah, Stenhousemuir unbeaten against Inverness in the league last time around. So, they'll be looking to continue that run. Your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, but a good game. I think last season they were two really high-flying sides, so I'd expect pretty much the same again. Two attacking sides trying to score goals, but two unbeaten sides as well, innit? Stenhousemuir on the better side of the unbeaten than Inverness are, but no, but a good game to watch. I think Stenhousemuir will go into the game with plenty of confidence and they'll play in the front foot, whereas Inverness will probably just try and soak it in for a wee bit, try and frustrate Stenhousemuir and then try and catch them in the break, because they have done a few times this season. I think they've done it early in the season against St Johnstone, caught them in the break and somehow scored for the halfway line. But no, it'll be an interesting one to watch. But I think Stenhousemuir will win that one.
I am definitely. Yeah, possible home advantage coming into play there, and as I mentioned, you got the 2 wins and 2 draws last season. So yeah, that is all for this week's action and our preview of the upcoming fixtures. We will, of course, be back for those next time around, unless Dunfermline do win, in which case I will not be here for the foreseeable future. So I will be, don't worry. I'm a brave man, I did a half an hour rant last season after we lost 3-0 at Eastern Park, so who knows, we might get another one of those. But yes, that has been all for this week, and we will see you next time around. Goodbye for now.